What's up, Kos here? I wanted to come on here today and speak on how, for most of my life, I've lived in a place where I desired, where I craved, where I've become accustomed to seeking external validation, needing that approval from outside sources in order for me to feel some worthiness, right? In order for me to have confidence, to think that I'm worth something. And I've come to understand that this is how I've been living because I took a moment to self reflect. I took a moment to look back at my past decisions, how I approached relationships, how I approached my career, what I wanted to study. When I was in high school, I ended up choosing to go to college based off of the belief that I needed to so that my peers, so that my family would accept me, would love me, right? And this all stems from an upbringing where I received tons of love from my mom and dad, right? And in that process of me receiving love, I guess I created this subconscious belief that I needed to act a certain way, needed to be good, to not give my friends and family trouble, to be how they wanted me to be in order to have this love and this acceptance that I needed to have, right? This foundation that I needed for me to become someone who is a confident, a worthy adult, right? And in this process, you come to understand that when you are dependent on something that's outside of you, when you're dependent on external validation to make you feel worthy, to make you feel like you are someone who is confident, but worthy of love, of acceptance of who you are, what you believe in, of what you're doing with your life, there's no strength in that. Anything that you seek that is outside of yourself leaves you vulnerable, right? Because you're not always going to want to do what people in your life want you to do. You're going to have different opinions, different desires, things that you value that are different than others, right? And in this process, you start to understand, like I did, that all the actions that I was taking were coming from the wrong place. I would bend over backwards for people in my life, right? I would disrespect myself and allow things to happen in my life so that those people could be happy, right? And then you end up in this place where you feel like you don't know yourself. All the actions that you've taken have come from what and for what. They're not because you wanted to do those things. It's not because you value any of that, right? You do these things because you needed, or you thought you needed these things outside of you to approve of you and to love you in order for you to feel this confidence and the stability that we all need in our lives in order for us to live a good balanced life, right? In order for us to go for our goals, be in healthy relationships, have fulfilling lives, right? But what happens, right? That's very interesting, and that really made a difference to me, is that I started to look at things differently, honestly backwards. Instead of me looking for this exterior, at this exterior, to get that approval, to get that love, I started to look from the inside, right? So whenever I did something that I wanted to do, I would approve of myself. I would give myself love, right? If I wanted to go somewhere, right, and nobody else wanted to go, I wouldn't just do what they wanted to do. I would do what I wanted to do. I would say no to others. When I was saying yes my whole life, I stopped studying and working in the field that I studied in college for such a long time because I realized that that wasn't what I wanted to do, right? It was just this next step in the process of me receiving this approval and love that I thought I needed from the outside. And once I understood and felt the pain, right, I stopped running away from this belief that if I didn't do these things, I would be abandoned. One, I realized that that was a lie, it was a false belief, because my family and friends still love me, they're still there for me, they still accept me, right? And I've come to understand that in that process, I've stopped abandoning myself. So the realization that I thought that others would abandon me came to be a realization that I was actually abandoning myself. So I decided to be the opposite. I decided to be this new person that is choosing himself first, right? That does what he wants to do, right? That doesn't allow people to disrespect him, that he doesn't make decisions dependent on what other people want of him to do. He doesn't need that external validation and approval anymore. He gives that to himself. He approves of what he's doing, of how he's living, of the values that he has, right? And if people disagree with that, then that's absolutely okay. And it doesn't mean that he'll be loved any less. It doesn't mean that he's unworthy. It doesn't mean that he'll be abandoned or forgotten, right? And it's so refreshing to experience that, because the fear of something is always worse than the actual happenings that occur when you really put yourself in those situations. So in this process, I don't want you to believe that, okay, I've adopted new beliefs and now I am this new person. That's not how things work, right? We have this programming, this way of being that we've adopted for most of our lives. So when we come to realize it, when we become aware of something that isn't working, okay, that's the first step. You're aware of a problem, right? Now you look at who you would like to be, right? This person who is self-loving, that gives to himself, that is allowing and loving of who he is, of who he's becoming, of his actual qualities. And you start to work with both of these at the same time, right? So if you become triggered into being this old way, this old person, this old identity, right? You realize that the actions you're taking are that person who is people pleasing, that is seeking that external validation from something outside of him. You use that as a trigger and you realize, oh shit, it's happening right now. Okay, awesome. I'm gonna allow what comes up inside of me to be. I'm gonna allow the discomfort, maybe the fear of that abandonment that I once believed, right, to be there. And then I'm gonna use that as a trigger and notice, right, that if I am searching for it outside of me, that means that I haven't been giving it to myself recently. So I'm gonna focus now to give it to myself. Wow, you've been doing great. You've been feeling better, right? You've been saying no. You've been doing the little things, and you should give yourself this credit, right, and this compassion, because you need it, right? The love and the acceptance that you crave from sources outside of you is now being given to you from you. You're not abandoning yourself. This means that you're trusting yourself more, right? You have more confidence, you have more self-esteem, and it's infinite, right? It's not dependent on sources outside of you. It's infinite to you because you're giving it to yourself. So in this process, you understand that you have this old way of being. You are naturally molding, intentionally molding a new way of being. And when you become aware of one, sometimes you don't become aware of it, right? And you do something that you don't want other people to do. Okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Become aware of it afterwards. Oh wow, I actually didn't want to do that, but I did it. Noted. There's still parts of me that still have this old way of being, right? This old way of thinking. That's fine. Next time, I'm going to remember how I feel now, which isn't so good because I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm going to remember how I feel internally. Maybe I feel some pain because I didn't want to do that and I did it again. Okay, cool. Remember that feeling. Sit in that feeling and allow yourself to remember that, so that next time when it happens, that's a trigger, and instead of you doing that action that you don't want to do, what you're doing now is saying no, right? And because you do that, you're working out this muscle, and it's like you're fitting this new identity into who you are, right? You're slowly molding it onto yourself. And this is a process that you have to take with patience, with a lot of awareness, with honesty and acceptance, right, of who you want to be. Mold yourself into someone that you could actually approve of and love, someone who's compassionate, someone who is a good person, someone who is going after their dreams, right? Someone who you want to be, right? Someone that is full of the likes of the beliefs that you are, right? Not that other people want you to be or what that you've been surrounded around. And that's a process. You mold that slowly. Some pieces you like and you try out, other pieces you take away and you don't like because you tried it, right? But you gave yourself the opportunity to see if you liked it or not. And then this person that you're starting to mold starts to take shape. But this is a process and it's okay. Then you have to understand that when things come up from the past, you accept that fully, right? With compassion and love, because at one moment, the person that you were in those moments and the actions that you needed to take and the beliefs that you held in order for you to live the life that you were living back then were needed for you to get what you needed at that moment, right? We all need love and approval from our parents, from our caretakers, but when you grow up in life, if you don't start to switch these things, you start to understand through experience, through pain, that okay, I'm gonna have to adopt something else because this is not something that's sustainable, something that's not in my best interest. And that's great. It's an awesome process, right? So I wanted to share this today because it's something that I've been working on and I'm going to continue to work on, right? And I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to come back and fix these mistakes and keep going and keep letting go of this old version of me, right? So when it comes up, it's like a bubble that's coming up that's allowing itself to work through. And as I allow it to be and I look at it and I experience it fully, I'm not running away from the fear or abandonment. I'm not running away from the thoughts and the beliefs that I had before. I'm sitting with it. It's like I am being presented with a younger version of me, and it's coming to me with its emotions, with its thoughts, its fears, and I'm sitting there with it and I'm loving it, right? And I'm receiving it with love. And in that process, the more love that I give it, the more I let all of that go, right? It's released. I don't need it anymore because I understand that I have the strength now and the awareness, right? And I'm building the skills and this new identity that I would like to be. Someone who's stronger, someone who is more self-confident, someone who is more worthy and sure of that worthiness, right? And that's reflected in my actions, right? I start doing what I want to do. I start treating the people in my life honestly better, right? Because I accept them for who they are, and I accept myself, but my actions aren't dependent on, I don't need anything outside of me anymore. And I'm not saying that you're not gonna enjoy getting validation from outside. Of course you are, that's normal, we're all humans, right? But you have such a strong foundation that it's like instead of you needing it, it's just a really great compliment that someone gives you, right? It's awesome, right? It's a validation of what you are actually working on inside of yourself instead of it being a necessity of what you never had internally. So, again, become aware of yourself a little more today, right? Look at past actions, look at how you live your life, look at if these things are serving you. If you have this inclination inside of yourself that you think you can do things differently, that would be better for you, that would make you happier, try something new. Become aware of who you would like to be, become aware of who you currently are, and in this process, you'll start seeing what works and what doesn't. Do it with compassion, do it with patience. This is a process, right? It's not something that happens right away. It's something that takes time, like building your body in the gym, like becoming healthy, right? And it's so fulfilling because you start to experience new things in your life and you're like, wow, it's actually working. And in that process of you seeing that it's working, of you creating new realities, of you being different and not needing this validation from someone outside of yourself, it's hard to explain. It's so much more valuable than anything anyone could have ever given you outside of you. So I'm gonna leave you guys there. Become aware more and more, and in that process, things will 100% change. Have a great day and stay up.